So let me just say, here we are, and we are here with one of the stars of really the hottest new comedy, really in all of TV right now, Young Rock. Yeah, Lexie Duncan. Oh my goodness. Let me start that over. Did I just call you?
Duxon.
Yes, I did.
You Duncan. It's all good, Gerry.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, so we are here again with one of one of the stars of really the hottest new comedy in all the world, as far as the TV landscape goes. It's called Young Rock. You know it, you've heard of it. I'm sure you've seen it by now. And one of the fresh faces on the show, Lexie Duncan, is here. Lexie, hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Very
Oh,
excited to be here.
thank you for being here. Now, where exactly beyond here are you? Where are we reaching you today?
I am in Sydney, Australia. My home. My home.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
we're across the world.
Across the
Um,
world, different time zones. It's all happening.
Unbelievable. Have you been traveling a lot to promote, or have you been basically local during the
Basically
whole period?
local. I mean, Zoom and COVID, everything's sort of just we do it all at home, which is good and bad. I think it would be fun to be with all the cast, promoting it, but this is what we got to do at the moment.
Yeah. Hey, and it's working. It's working.
Yeah,
Over
it
five
is.
million, I believe, stateside was the number quoted for the premiere of the episode and of the series, I should say. And yeah, it's just getting bigger and bigger. It's expanding all over the place, and people are catching up with it. And such an amazing, unique idea for a show brought to you by, well, essentially the biggest star on the planet. So that doesn't hurt. Um, what was your knowledge, if you will, of Dwayne Johnson before all this started? Is he as big of a deal in your neck of the woods as we
Well,
know?
yeah, he is definitely a huge deal here in Australia as well. I knew Dwayne Johnson as a kid from the movie The Tooth Fairy, where he played the Tooth Fairy. That was like my first, I guess, yeah, knowledge of The Rock. And then I also knew him from Jumanji and Baywatch and all those sort of things. But as far as like his early life, I knew, nothing about that. I didn't really know too much about the whole wrestling aspect of his life either. So coming onto this, I learned a lot about him that, yeah, really didn't
That's
know.
you hear people who know about him from wrestling first, and from
Yeah.
football, and from acting. Tooth Fairy, that's a first. I've not heard of
Yeah,
that one.
right? It's like a bit random.
So that's amazing. Now, obviously you have been building a career before you got to this point. So let's talk about that a little bit, because you've got history in musical theater. Um,
Yeah.
what was the point of your life, your childhood, where you decided that you wanted to focus on acting?
I guess, I mean, I come from sort of a performing family. Two of my aunts are actresses, Carmen and Paula Duncan, and it was just always sort of in front of me. And I was a singer as a kid, and I would always get up on, the table and sing to my family. But I think when I auditioned for Mary Poppins, which was the Australian, I guess, production that came here, uh, and I've got Jane Banks. I think that was sort of the moment that I was like, oh wow, I can really do this as a career, whether it be in theater or film or TV. I think just working with professional adult actors at such an impressionable age really molded that. So there was that, and then a little bit later on in year 12, I booked a very small guest role on an Australian show called The Secret Daughter, which was my first time on a set. And that was a probably very pinnacle moment for me too, just being on set and the energy and how fast paced everything moves and how different it is from theater. I thought I could really do this for the rest of my life as well. So that sort of led me to I went to an acting school here called NIDA, which is where a lot of Australian actors go. Kate Blanchett went there. And I did that for a year. And then my mum is American. And I thought, you know what, I just want to go to America. I have the dual citizenship. I want to just go. So I went to LA and I started taking acting classes and I set up my team and then coronavirus hit. And then I came back home and I booked Young Rock. It was just a very ironic sort of story how it all ended up happening.
That's amazing. Now, before coronavirus did hit, getting maybe a taste of just sort of what the scene is like over in LA versus home. How different was it?
Oh, very different. I mean, just the scale of, Hollywood compared to what, I mean, there are a lot of things filming here now, but before that, LA, everything is filming there, and everyone is somehow within the entertainment industry. You go to a restaurant, you're like, oh, are you an actor? And they are, or are you a writer? That happens all the time. As we're here, it's like, oh, you're an actor, what's your other job? Like that sort of thing. But yeah, I loved my time in LA. I was there for just over a year, taking lots of classes, and I taught singing on the side to little kids to make some extra money, and I loved it. I'm excited to go back. It's been nice being home, but once all the COVID sorted out, it'd be good to get back.
Does it feel like a new home at this point? Is that where you're destined to be?
I think so. Yeah, LA, just like the industry home. Yeah, definitely. It does feel like a second home, I think. Yeah.
Now, before we get to Young Rock, I have to ask you about something that was on your profile.
Yes.
You seem to have been an award winner in the horror film genre. A short film called VBs really was clearly a highlight for you in that world. The Diabolical Horror Film Festival, which sounds like just the scariest thing to attend that I've ever heard in my life, but probably super awesome. And you were part of a short that won the festival prize. What was VBs?
VBs was just my cousin, Jessica Orchik. She was the director. She had this film that she wrote, and she was like, it was honestly just very like last minute sort of, let's just film something. And so I did it. We sort of shot it at her apartment, and then they entered in a bunch of film festivals, and it picked up a couple of awards. So yeah, it was just kind of one of those fun little, let's film something and do it.
You were also honorable mention in the Independent Shorts Awards at the International Film Festival, Best Dark Comedy. This thing picked up some steam.
It did, yeah. Like it really did, considering it just started off as a little, let's film something in, my cousin's apartment. Let's do it.
They always say, especially today with technology the way it is, if you're in a lull in your career, if you're a creator, if you're a performer, create. Just
go out there and do something. Yeah.
And then, especially with COVID now and things kind of, I'd have to imagine they're very stop-start for you, because obviously you said, your LA part of your career for the moment was stalled. You had to come back home. And it probably, did it feel like a big stall and then suddenly Young Rock came along?
I think it did. When I first came home, it was like, I honestly thought I'd be home for 2 months. I was like, oh, this is going to pass. And then, it didn't really. And there wasn't a lot of auditions happening. And there were things right before coronavirus hit. I had a couple callbacks. There were a couple things in the mix that were happening that just got sort of stalled, and we haven't really heard about them since. So it was a little bit like, oh, damn, like I felt like I was really getting close. And then Young Rock came along, and it was like, wow, first of all, what a great script and what a great opportunity to play The Rock's girlfriend. How good. And then, it was super ironic to me that I had gone over to America to book a US job, to come back home because of a pandemic and book a US job. It was just like, really? The universe.
Now, did Young Rock film inevitably all in one place, or where?
It's shot mainly in Brisbane. Our studio, Screen Queensland in Brisbane, was sort of like our base location. And then a lot of the Hawaii era, you'll see, is shot in the Gold Coast. And then a couple of locations sort of just outside. The Gold Coast is, for those who don't know, is about an hour from south of Brisbane. But mainly we shot within the Brisbane vicinity. All of it. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And what exactly put you on the radar here? Because this was clearly a casting that there was a lot of specificity to, if that is a good word. They're really intent on getting the details right, you'd have to believe, with a lot of these people that were actually a part of his life. Where did you come in that process?
So when I first got the role, and we were in our table reads and having discussions with the producers and the writers, I asked, was she a real girlfriend? And Karen is actually an amalgamation of a couple girls that Dwayne had, I guess, crushes on. And that's the same with Gabe, who's played by Taj Cross. He plays his best friend in the 15-year-old era. He's an amalgamation of a couple guy friends too. So in that sense, it was kind of, I got to have my own spin on this character, which was really cool. And even in the audition, the breakdown was very simple. It was like 15-year-old high school girl who catches Dwayne's eye and they start dating. There wasn't really any like characteristics put on it. So I really got to just do what I wanted, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, at what point, or is there a point where Dwayne, where there's feedback, like actual personal feedback, as far as that input, those aspects of those real life girls, how does that get infused into the character?
Well, I think Dwayne was pretty involved in the casting process, I've heard. I actually just did my entire audition was one self tape, which is pretty rare. I've heard it's kind of crazy. I did a self tape. It was middle of COVID, so it was with my mum, who's I use her because she has the American accent. And yeah, we put this tape down. I didn't hear anything for about 2.5 weeks, and then I got an email saying, "Oh, you're on hold. We should know in a couple days." And then yeah, it came through. I was network approved, so I actually showed up at the Zoom table read with Dwayne and all our producers and all our directors, not having met any of them, and hoping that they still liked what I was doing in the table read. But it was one of those sort of crazy stories. And then after our table reads was when we could have, throw around ideas and that sort of thing. But honestly, I was really left to my own devices. They liked what I was doing, and I just sort of kept with my instincts. And before we shot our Pennsylvania episodes, we sat down with the director of those episodes, Dana Reed, and we sort of discussed, what do we want this couple to look like? And it was sort of a decision made that we wanted, the audience to root for this couple and not think, why is Dwayne going out with this money-hungry, materialistic, annoying teenage girl? I think, Karen has some quirks. There's a little bit more to her than just being your typical, 15-year-old cheerleader. And so that was sort of really fun to discuss. But it was a collaborative process, the whole thing, preparing. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your mother's American.
Yes.
Does an American accent come naturally to you? Because I find that, it feels to me like it's like people from other countries do a much better job of imitating us compared to what we do to you guys. I mean, we just butcher you guys.
Well, we have an advantage because we have American TV. We're hearing Americans all the time. So I feel like, you don't hear Australians on your TV all the time. But did it come naturally? I mean, actually, my mum's accent is a little bit not American anymore. It's a little bit of a mix because she came when she was 23. So actually I struggled a little bit because I would copy her and there'd be some things that would be wrong. And so when I moved over to LA, I said to myself, I'm just going to talk American all the time, which is now when I do talk to Americans, I almost have to think, go talk in your normal voice because I ingrained that so much while I was over there. Yeah.
Have you now? I mean, your part of the show is really more about Dwayne at 15. At this point, from what we've seen. So he's not yet close himself to the point where he's going, into serious football as he does, as we see later in college and then into the wrestling. But we do see you get exposed to that wrestling world quite early on in this series. When he takes you to your first wrestling show, which ends up being less than expected in many ways as far as size.
Definitely.
Well, you mentioned that you didn't really know a lot about the whole wrestling side of Dwayne Johnson. Have you kind of come to understand a little bit more about that side of what he would eventually become?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bradley Constantine plays 15-year-old Dwayne. We would actually go on our days off just to watch the actors do all their own stunts and all that wrestling. And none of them were wrestlers before this. So they pretty much learned to do all of that in like the span of a couple weeks. So we would go and we would watch, and it was so cool. And I think in that scene that you're talking about where Karen gets taken on this date to the wrestling, she knows a little bit about wrestling, as in she's seen WrestleMania 3,
Right.
but I think she's completely shocked by how violent it is. But yeah, that was probably one of the most fun days on set was that whole when the wild Samoans come up and scare the bejesus out of me. And we did that take maybe 15 times. Every time they would scare me every single time, which was just a lot of fun. And Bradley would laugh, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, guys, I'm not acting here. I really am scared."
Did it actually truly seeing even the stunt work up close? I mean, when you think about it, stunt work, professional wrestling, it's kind of they're going through the same motions. Were you surprised by the physicality that goes into even what these actors had to do?
Oh, it's insane. Like, I really was surprised. And even, we'd shoot something and then we'd go on break and they'd have to stay warm because all your muscles would seize up and everything. So they'd be like, jogging on the spot and trying to stay. I mean, they'd be sore. They'd be doing this for, hours a day and go back the next day and have to do it again. It was incredible to see. And such stamina, my God. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, you are certainly a highlight of the show that has become a highlight of TV.
Thank you.
I have to ask you, I mean, this show is getting bigger and bigger, and you're The Rock's girlfriend on TV all over the world. Has the world let you know yet? Have you felt sort of the love, the wrath, the buzz?
Yeah, the buzz, definitely. Everyone is like, when we found out about, Rotten Tomatoes and getting certified fresh, that, and like the NBC that it, is the biggest comedy launch in years. I mean, the entire cast is just completely stoked. I feel like I'm still like a little bit under the radar. I haven't been recognized or anything yet, but it's definitely exciting just to see, like, when you put so much into something and you're with it from the beginning, it's so cool to see everyone's reaction and how everyone's taking it and loving it so far. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling the love, and the fans are insane. I mean, it's The Rock, he's 220 million followers now. So it is crazy to think about. Yeah.
It's insane. And you guys are now a part of that phenomenon. And that's going to continue to grow. And wait till you come back to LA. I don't think there's going to be any issues with you being recognized anymore. It's going to be a much different story for you now.
Crazy. It's going to be very interesting. Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us. Had a great time talking to you. And, I know that your time is going to be spent doing a lot of interviews.
Thank you so much.
I want to ask you one more thing, and you have to use your own judgment here to answer. Based on what you feel comfortable talking about, what are some things we can expect as the first season of Young Rock goes on, as far as the relationship between 15-year-old Rock and Karen?
Well, you haven't seen the end of 15-year-old Dwayne and Karen. There's a lot more to come. There is possibly a couple more dates, and with that comes a lot more laughs. And that's probably all I can say. You'll just have to tune in and watch.
You're getting good at this.
It's hard. I would love to just give it all away, but I'd ruin it. I'd spoil it for everyone.
I know. And then we'd be mad at you. So
Exactly.
Can't win. But thank you again so much. It's so great to chat with you, and continued success onward and upward from here.
Thank you so much, Gerry. It was so good.
Thank you.
Thank you.